The Fisherman and the Jinni. A fisherman, who was old, poor and had a wife and 3 children, would cast his net 4 times each day and no more. This was his usual routine. One day, he went to the seashore at noon, set down his basket, and entered the water. He cast his net and waited for it to reach the bottom. When he gathered the cords and tried to pull it up, he found it to be heavy. Despite his efforts, he couldn't bring it to shore. He then anchored the net to a stake on the shore. He then took off his clothes and dove into the water to retrieve the net. He worked hard to bring it up, and upon doing so, he put his clothes back on and went to the net. Inside he found a dead donkey which had torn the net. He said, "There is no majesty and there is no might save in Allah the Glorious, the Great." He exclaimed this out of his disappointment and said, "This is a strange way to get my daily bread." He then began reciting a spontaneous poem. The fisherman works hard through the night, putting himself in danger and pain, but his hard work does not always guarantee him his daily bread. He works tirelessly on the sea, looking for fish while the stars shine above. He bravely faces the waves and constantly checks his net for a catch. Eventually, he is able to bring home a fish that was caught by fate. And as he sells the fish to someone who passed the night in comfort and ease, he praises the Lord for giving him this catch and for denying others their wishes. He realizes that it is the Lord who decides who will toil and catch the prey and who will simply eat the fish. He then said, "I will continue to work. I trust in the Lord's kindness," and he continues with his work. When you are faced with a difficult fate, be patient and endure it with a noble spirit. This is your best course of action. Do not complain to others, as they too are subject to the same harsh realities of life. Instead, direct your complaints to the most compassionate and merciful, Allah. The fisherman, after examining the dead donkey, removed it from the net. He wrung out the net and cast it again into the sea, saying in Allah's name. He pulled at the net but found it heavy and it settled deeper than before. Believing there were fish inside, he anchored it and dove into the water to retrieve it. When he brought it to the shore, he found a large earthen pitcher filled with sand and mud. This greatly upset him, and he began reciting a poem expressing his disappointment. "O troubles of the world, please stop, or at least forgive me. I went out to find my daily bread, but now I see I will have to go without it. Neither my work nor fate has given me anything. Many foolish people achieve success while wise and cautious individuals are left in the dark." He sought forgiveness from Allah and discarded the jar. He wrung out his net and cleaned it, and then went back to the sea for the 3rd time to cast his net. After it had sunk, he pulled it up and found it filled with broken pottery and glass. He then began speaking the following verses. "You cannot control or change the daily bread that you receive. No pen or written agreement can help you find it. Joy and daily bread are given by fate. Some lands are barren while others are fertile. The arrows of time and life often strike down the worthy while lifting up the undeserving. So death is welcome, for life is not worth living when the worthy are brought low while the unworthy are lifted high. It is not surprising to see the great in soul and mind living in poverty while the mediocre are blessed with success. Some birds will fly all over the world while others will find success without ever leaving the nest." Then, he looked up to the heavens and said, "Oh my God, you know that I only cast my net 4 times a day and it's the 3rd time now and you have not provided me with any fish. Oh my God, please give me my daily bread this time." He then cast his net again, waiting for it to sink, but when he tried to pull it in, he found it was caught on something at the bottom. He exclaimed in frustration, "There is no majesty and there is no might save in Allah." And he began reciting, "This world is terrible, if it means I must be overwhelmed by sorrow and misery." Even though a person's life may start off well, they often find themselves facing hardship before the day is over. I was once considered to be one of the luckiest people, but now it seems that is no longer the case. He took off his clothes and dove into the water to untangle the net. He worked on it until he brought it to the shore. When he opened the net, he found a jar shaped like a cucumber made of yellow copper. It was sealed with a lead cap and had the seal of Sulayman son of David, may Allah accept them both, on it. The jar was full of something. The fisherman was overjoyed at this discovery and said, "If I sell this jar in the brass market, it will be worth 10 gold dinars." He shook the jar and finding it heavy, he said, "I wish I knew what's inside. But I'll open it and see what's inside and then put it in my bag and sell it in the brass market." He took out a knife and removed the lead cap, then he placed the cap on the ground and shook the jar to pour out its contents. He found nothing in the jar, and he was extremely surprised. But then, smoke started to pour out of the jar and rose into the sky. The fisherman was amazed again. The smoke continued to spread until it condensed and took the form of a giant jinn. His size was immense, his head reached the clouds, his hands were like pitchforks, his legs were long like masts, and his mouth was as big as a cave. His teeth were like large stones, his nostrils were like ewers, his eyes were like lamps, and his expression was fierce and intimidating. When the fisherman saw the jinn, he was paralyzed with fear. His muscles trembled, his teeth chattered, his mouth went dry, and he didn't know what to do. The jinn then looked at him and said, "There is no God but the God, and Sulayman is the prophet of God." He then added, "O Apostle of Allah, do not kill me. I will never speak or act against you again." The fisherman said, "O Marid, did you say Sulayman the Apostle of Allah? Sulayman died 1800 years ago, and we are now in the end of days. Tell me your story, and how did you end up in this jar?" When the jinn heard the fisherman's words, he said, "There is no God but the God. Be at peace, fisherman." The fisherman asked, "Why do you tell me to be at peace?" The jinn replied, "Because you will die a terrible death in this very hour." The fisherman said, "Your good tidings are not welcome, you distant one. You deserve to be cut off from the protection of heaven. Why should you kill me? What have I done to deserve death? I freed you from the jar, saved you from the depths of the sea, and brought you to the dry land." The jinn replied, "Just ask me how you want to die, and by what method I should kill you." The fisherman asked, "What is my crime, and why should I be punished in such a way?" The jinn said, "Listen to my story, fisherman." The fisherman replied, "Please speak quickly, my life hangs by a thread." The jinn began, "I am one of the disobedient jinn, and I sinned against Sulayman, son of David, peace be upon them both. I am the famous Sakhr al-Jinni. Sulayman sent his minister, Asaf son of Barkia, to capture me. He did so and brought me, against my will, to Sulayman, and I was in a state of humility despite my pride. He then stood me before him like a supplicant. When Sulayman saw me, he sought protection from Allah and commanded me to accept the true faith and obey his commands. But I refused. So, he ordered for this jar and sealed me inside, using the Most High name, and ordered the jinn to carry me off and cast me into the middle of the ocean. I stayed there for 100 years, and during that time, I thought to myself, whoever releases me, I will make them rich for all eternity. But the 100 years passed and no one freed me. I then spent another 50 years, thinking whoever releases me, I will open up the treasures of the earth for them. But still, no one freed me. So, 400 years passed. Then I thought, whoever releases me, I will fulfill 3 wishes for them. But still, no one freed me. So, I became extremely angry and said to myself, whoever releases me from now on, I will kill them and give them the choice of how they want to die. And now, as you have freed me, I give you the choice of how you want to die. The fisherman, upon hearing the jinn's words, said, "O Allah, it's a miracle that I freed you in these days." He then pleaded, "Spare my life, as Allah will spare yours, and do not kill me, lest Allah sends someone to kill you." The jinn replied, "There is no other way around it, you must die. So, ask me for the method of death you choose." Despite this, the fisherman again pleaded with the jinn, "Please forgive me for my death, as a generous reward for freeing you." But the jinn replied, "I would not kill you if you hadn't freed me." The fisherman said, "O leader of the jinns, I did you a good turn and yet you repay me with evil. Truly the old saying is true when it says, we did good to them and they did us harm. Such is the reward of every bad person. He who helps ungrateful people will face the same fate as the neighbor of Amir." When the Ifrit heard this, he said, "Enough of this talk, I must kill you." The fisherman then thought to himself, "This is a jinni and I am a man whom Allah has given a reasonably clever mind. I will use my intelligence and ingenuity to outsmart him and destroy him, just as he relied solely on his malice and stubbornness." He began by asking the Ifrit, "Have you truly decided to kill me?" Upon receiving a confirmation, he said, "In the most great name, engraved on the seal ring of Sulayman son of David, if I ask you a question, will you give me a true answer?" The Ifrit replied, "Yes," but upon hearing the mention of the most great name, he was startled and said with trembling, "Ask and be brief." The fisherman asked, "How did you fit into this jar, which couldn't even hold your hand or foot, and how did it become big enough to contain your whole body?" The Ifrit replied, "What, do you not believe that I was all there?" The fisherman said, "No, I will never believe it until I see it with my own eyes." And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased to say her permitted say. When it was the fourth night, "No, I will never believe it until I see it with my own eyes," the Ifrit, feeling trapped and powerless against the power of Solomon's seal, had no choice but to shrink himself and re-enter the bottle. The fisherman, upon seeing this, quickly sealed the bottle again with the lead and the seal of Solomon, trapping the Ifrit once more. So he cried out, "Mercy, O fisherman! Have pity on me and I will grant thee 3 wishes." The fisherman, seeing that the Ifrit was now powerless, agreed to the deal and made his 3 wishes. The first wish was for wealth and prosperity, the second for a beautiful wife, and the third for a long and peaceful life. The Ifrit granted his wishes and disappeared, never to be seen again. The fisherman lived out his days in happiness and wealth, and he always remembered the lesson he learned from the Ifrit, to be careful of what he wished for, and to be grateful for the blessings he had. But thou wouldst not listen and thou didst vouchsafe me naught but death. Now thou shalt taste thereof and suffer the same. The Tale of King Yunnan and the Sage Duban. The story is about a king named Yunnan who was suffering from leprosy and a wise sage named Duban who had a cure for it. The king's wazir, who was envious of Duban's knowledge,